grants Abdurrashid Maina bail in the tune of 1 billion naira. Police arrest 6 in connection to death of Kogi PDP women leader. And President Muhammadu Buhari commiserates with Kenya as death toll from mudslides hits 60. A warm welcome to News Now. I am Fidelia Aguncha. A federal high court sitting in Abuja has granted former chairman of the defunct pension reform tax team, Abdurrashid Maina, bail in the sum of 1 billion naira with 2 sureties in like sum. Justice Okon Abang handed very stiff bail conditions to the defendant after reviewing a medical report from the Nigeria Correctional Services confirming that Maina is fit to stand trial. According to the court, both sureties must be serving Nigerian senators with no criminal cases before the court and must have fully developed landed properties in Maitama or Asokoro district of Abuja. The court also stated that the sureties must also submit 3 years tax clearance certificate and must appear at all further court rulings with the first defendant. It was also stipulated in the ruling that the residence of sureties must be in Abuja and will be confirmed by the court. The trial judge, Justice Okon Abang, in his ruling stressed that if any sureties does not show up for rulings, the court shall be at liberty to revoke bail and the defendant will be remanded accordingly. Maina was also ordered to submit his American passport, Nigerian passport, and diplomatic passport to the court. Still with the judiciary, the Federal High Court in Abuja has barred the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, from prosecuting a former Comptroller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, Abdullahi Diko. Delivering judgment on the suit instituted by Diko, Justice Nnamdi Dingba held that a non-prosecution agreement entered into between the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, and the plaintiff was binding on the EFCC. The agreement was said to have been based on the return of 1.5 billion naira proceeds of alleged crimes he committed while in the office to the coffers of the federal government. Justice Dingba held that by virtue of the provisions of Section 174 of the Constitution, the AGF, being the chief law officer of the Federation, was imbued with the wide powers and discretion of on prosecution matters. He added that the claim by the EFCC that it acted on an anonymous petition to commence its investigations cannot override the discretionary powers conferred on the Attorney General of the Federation by virtue of Section 174 of the Constitution. The rehabilitation of internally displaced persons, IDP, in the country is urgent and imperative if it would constitute a big problem for the country in the future. President Muhammadu Buhari said this while receiving President of the 74th United Nations General Assembly, Tijani Mohamed Bande, on Monday at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. In a statement by his Senior Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, Buhari was quoted to have said that most of the displaced children do not know their parents or where they come from, stressing that if left unaddressed, we will have a problem on our hands in the future, end of quote. He therefore urged the UN General Assembly presidents to make Nigeria's challenges glaring to the world while commending him for what he called your hard work and competence so far. President Buhari also noted that Nigeria was committed to education and providing health care to the young and old, among other welfareist policies. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has cleared the air over his rumored third-term agenda, saying he won't make the mistake of attempting to remain in power after 2023 elections. Buhari said this remark at the National Executive Council meeting of the All Progressives Congress in Abuja. On his part, National Chairman of the party, Adams Oshomole, highlighted some of the gains recorded by the party in the 2019 general elections.
I'm not going to make the mistake of attempted to have a third term or whatever term. Besides the age, I swore by the holy book I give you that I will go by the Constitution. And the Constitution said 2 terms. I know I'm the last term, and I can afford to be recognized because I'm not going to ask for anybody's vote. For that reason, I want you to read the Constitution and make sure that when the Constitution says the election, as we did the last time from bottom to top, will start in 18 months' time or 20 months' time, it's going to be done.
Mr. President, I have chosen to amplify where we lost, but we also make some gains that are quite outstanding. Mr. President, I am sure it gladdens the heart of every APC member and even APC well-wishers that the man who led rebellion against our party, former Senate President, that the people of Kwara State did not only deny him return to the Senate, they also voted out every element in PDP, and today from the governorship we won, the senators we won, and of course the House of Rep and the House of Assembly. I think our victory in Kwara State, for me, was most outstanding.
The Kogi State Command of the Nigeria Police Force says it has arrested 6 suspects in connection with the killing of Salome Abu, a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) in Kogi State. Spokesman of the command, William Ayer, announced this in Lokoja, the state capital, on Monday. Abu, a former councillor and women leader of the People's Democratic Party, was set ablaze on November 18 in her husband's house at Ochadamu. Ayer said the police has started interrogating the suspect to ascertain their level of culpability in the death of the woman. He said the outcome of the investigation will be made public as soon as possible. The development is coming hours after President Muhammadu Buhari directed the police to arrest the killers of Abu with a view to bringing them to justice. Today, November 25, is the International Day on Violence Against Women. It also marks the beginning of the global 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence campaign. On this occasion, law enforcement agencies have been reminded of their important roles in the protection of human rights, especially when it affects women and girls. At a press conference held by the Network of Police Reform in Nigeria, NOPRIN, and Project Alert, stakeholders called for effective measures to ensure that perpetrators of sexual violence are brought to book. Details are in this next report.
Global rights group Amnesty International has repeatedly drawn attention to disturbing trends of rape and sexual violence against women and girls by police and security forces. NOPRIN and Project Alert have gathered civil society organizations and members of the press here to address this illicit act carried out by law enforcement officers. They are calling for an end to impunity in the Nigerian criminal justice system, which allows culprits to go unpunished.
What really bothers us as an organization is when these issues happen, you go to police station to report, and then those people that are supposed to protect, they are the ones doing it. They are the ones behind the counter. They put you behind the counter, and they are perpetrating more harm to you than offering succor. It's very, very worrisome.
NOPRIN is calling on the Inspector General of Police and the Chief of Defense Staff to take appropriate steps to curb the act of sexual violence being perpetrated by their men. As law enforcement officers, they are supposed to protect and not abuse women and girls. Law enforcement officers are not above the law. Thus, if they commit acts of sexual abuse, they should be dismissed from the force.
The main aim of the 16 Days of Activism is to develop strategies for the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. To this effect, Chairperson of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, Nigeria, is calling for a collective effort to increase awareness and provide support for victims.
There is need for each and every one of us to focus on how to gear efforts towards putting in place a comprehensive and multi-sectoral services that is accessible for all survivors of rape and sexual violence. And also explore how we can collectively change our response to be survivor-based, survivor-centered, timely, and efficient.
Other issues raised at the conference is the culture of silence that often prevents victims from speaking up, as well as the evidence-based system which hinders access to justice.
When a child wants to talk, and if media are carrying it, they will put the full picture of the child or the victim. Instead of looking for the perpetrator and putting the picture of the perpetrator, perpetrators of sexual violence will be named and shamed. I think that will go a long way, because when you know that if a child mentions your name or somebody mentions your name, you will be shamed. Your name will be published, your name will be entered into that register. People will not want to put themselves into it.
There's underreporting of domestic violence done within homes and other facilities. It's even worse in custodial facility. Why? Because when they have guns, they have machinery for intimidation, and so they are the ones that all their colleagues are the ones that will prosecute. Sex is sometimes used as a negotiating power for victims to get, for suspects to get their freedom, and it's done in secrecy, so it makes it difficult for victims' attorney, our defense attorney, to get evidence of such abuse.
The 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is an international initiative which takes place annually and runs from 25th November to 10th December, which is Human Rights Day. Oyin Adekunle, TV360, Lagos.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian government has launched the Sex Offenders Register and the referral guidelines on gender-based violence in the country. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo formally launched the register, represented by Solicitor General of the Federation, Dayo Akpata. The Sex Offenders Register aims to curb sexual violence in Nigeria, and its launch coincides with the 2019 16 Days Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. It is also an occasion which advocates worldwide focus on changing the narrative, and Osinbajo says all hands must be on deck to end the menace of sexual abuse.
You know, a lot of sexual offenders have been raping victims with impunity, and at a point in time it appeared as if nothing was happening to them. If they get good lawyers, they get off the hook, and I personally found it very annoying, and I knew we had to do something about it. Now with the Sexual Offenders Register, we have names. It's a name and shame policy. We have the names of convicted offenders, as well as names of offenders who were arrested but not convicted, for the general public to know who they are dealing with. It's very important, because you have schools recruiting teachers, you have families recruiting house helps, drivers, and so on and so forth. So you want to be sure that you're not recruiting a rapist or a pedophile. So I think it's so significant and very important for Nigeria and Nigerians generally.
Having a register for sexual offenders, I'm convinced, will make a significant difference in terms of preventing sexual and gender-based violence. Now, of course, getting to this stage was not easy at all, and we know that the implementation may be even tougher afterwards, but truly this is a real milestone that we see here today. Now it's for everybody to come together. It's for governors and the federal government to give this top priority, to put funding behind this initiative so it becomes sustainable. It's of course for the justice delivery system to play their role and their part, because it is only when there's no impunity, it's only when offenders are genuinely convicted that the register will fully function. But again, today is really not only about words, it's about real action taking place, and in that sense I congratulate Nigeria wholeheartedly.
Stakeholders in the child rights advocacy sector are asking governments at all levels to domesticate the Child Rights Act. The Act prescribes the protection of children and a guaranteed quality of life. This was part of deliberation at the 30th anniversary of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. The child rights advocate says recognition of children as rights holders is fundamental, stressing that according to the UN Convention, children are not property of adults but are individuals capable of expressing their own views. The 30th anniversary, organized by Save the Children in Abuja, provides opportunity for children to express their minds on issues affecting them in the society.
We are the most marginalized group and are also the ones who are directly affected by the decisions being made. Millions of children are affected by violence each year. Millions of children are dying from preventable diseases. Millions of children who still don't know how to read or write, even though they're in school. And then imagine this. Imagine 4 girls getting married every 60 seconds. So by the time you count from 1 to 60, 4 girls under the age of 15 have gotten married.
I want to be the voice to the voiceless children out there that are on the streets hawking. They don't have any money to go to school. Their parents did not send them to school. They don't have good shelter. They don't have food.
People go to the social media every day. Every minute, people are on the social media. If I advocate there, people go online, see what I advocate, think about it, and reason with it, and then they act on it.
In the last 30 years, when it comes to child rights, we have come a long way with regard to fulfilling, respecting, and realizing the rights of children in Nigeria and the world. Currently, there are a lot of things that put a challenge on UNSRC. The first one being commitment from government and states. The second one is the recurring climate change itself is a huge threat to that, and war on children. And everywhere, we call it everywhere, is war against the child. So the erosion of laws in countries, conflicts, like I said, there are so many other threats on the rights of the child.
The promotion and protection of the human rights and fundamental freedoms of older persons is a paramount concern of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration. Minister of Special Duties, George Akume, said this during the African High-Level Conference on Human Rights Situation of Older Persons in Africa. President Buhari, who was represented by the minister at the conference, called for a concerted effort to adequately tackle the vulnerabilities of older persons in the continent. The conference also aims to identify key areas of action, including the ratification of the regional protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of older people.
This conference has come up to take up such responsibilities. Therefore, I urge all African countries here present or represented to take back to their home countries that we need to wake up to the challenges of older persons in the region. We also need to collaborate and join efforts with other nations of the world, including international communities, to fight for the rights of older persons globally.
This issue of inclusion is key, and we shall therefore continue to make every effort throughout the presidency to guarantee and make everything we should do, we should make that rights of all, and especially of the older persons, are not forgotten. The very idea of leaving no one behind presupposes this. In addition, we cannot see how we can achieve our agreed goals, the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 Agenda by 2030, if we ignore the needs, rights, and contributions of this segment of society.
These discussions and agitations for human rights of older persons should be considered as calls for inclusion and ensuring that no one is left behind in the scheme of things in achieving the aspirations of the Sustainable Development Goals. As issues of such importance cannot be handled by an individual or an organization alone, I enjoin all relevant stakeholders to collaborate with one another towards realizing the primary aim of improving the lives, well-being, and human rights situation of older persons.
The Minister of Health, Osagi Ehanire, says unless stakeholders in the health sector join hands together to fight the scourge of pneumonia and premature death in Nigeria, attaining pneumonia-free society in the next 5 years may not be possible. The minister spoke at the 2019 World Prematurity and Pneumonia Day in Abuja. TV360's Tunjioyo was there and now reports.
Pneumonia, premature birth has been identified as the two major causes of under-5 deaths in Nigeria, responsible for more than 200,000 deaths annually. This is the reason for this gathering. The World Health Organization, WHO, United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, USAID, Save Children International, and other development partners are here to discuss how to address drastically under-5 deaths caused by these two.
As deadly as this condition can be, pneumonia and prematurity can be defeated if consistent and integrated approaches are adopted to prevent, protect, and care for the children. Evidence from the Global Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of Pneumonia shows that pneumonia deaths could be reduced by 2/3 if simple preventive interventions that protect against pneumonia are adopted, namely effective case management, promotion of exclusive breastfeeding, reduction in indoor air pollution, full immunization against the communicable diseases, prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV, and promotion of regular hand washing.
Now is the time to act. To decrease the deaths due to pneumonia and improve child survival, we also need to improve water, hygiene and sanitation, and decrease air pollution to help address the risk factors that cause pneumonia. Let's protect our children by establishing good health practices from birth and make every effort to diagnose pneumonia as early as possible.
For USAID, we will be making a contribution to support this effort through our flagship program called the Integrated Health Program, implemented by a consortia of NGOs led by Palladium International.
We are growing in a very rapid way. But who takes all the burden? The people that take the burden of this very rapid population growth are the women and the young. For every woman that dies, any child that is under 5 in that family has a propensity, 5 times propensity to die following the mother. So contraception is key for us. We know that one magic bullet that will reduce maternal mortality, reduce infant mortality and morbidity is adequate contraception.
At the root of premature deaths and pneumonia are poor access to primary health care and malnutrition. But what should government be doing to address this situation?
What is absolutely necessary is for government at all levels to find a way of reaching out and to find a way of supporting all efforts to improve the 3 things I have mentioned. If you are talking about every effort at primary health care, the first thing that comes is the issue of healthcare financing. How do we ensure universal healthcare coverage? How do we ensure that little primary health center in a tiny village in Jigawa State, for example, or in Ebonyi State, for example, has access to care?
The health as a whole, health has a lot of problems, starting from the financing of health in Nigeria. It is far lower than the standards recommended by WHO and other organizations. Health is not free because it involves a lot of equipment, manpower, so we have to start from there. Number 2, the structure of health in Nigeria. Nigerian health system is structured in such a way that it is almost like the reverse.
The event, organized by Save the Children International, is aimed at reducing the high rate of child mortality in Nigeria. From Abuja, Tunji Oye, TV360 News.
News Now will continue in just a moment. Don't go away.
Corruption not in my country.
Now, yeah?
Yes, Oga. Okay. Where I go come find 300 naira change?
I better try look for change now. When they do business. Hey, Timmy. I did, bro. I be. I beg, give me 200 naira. Make I take sort out this guy. If let's say no get change.
Take it, give us.
I said 200.
Give her 100 naira.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree to pay 200.
How much you think they carry people from that place we carry the chair?
Okay.
Why they touch me?
Now 100 naira. He agreed to pay.
Because that was what you said was the fair. Why you not go pay you? Why you they extort your customer? You see this corruption, what would they hear for news? They see for people everywhere. Now be this. This is corruption, not in our country.
Corruption not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
And the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, is seeking the support of the judiciary to recover over 5.4 trillion naira debt owed by the corporation by chronic debtors. The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at AMCON, Ahmed Kuru, said this at the 2019 Annual Seminar for Justices of the Court of Appeal in Abuja. Kuru said in view of the fact that AMCON was approaching its terminal date, it had become imperative to get the support of the courts in resolving all the pending cases currently before them. He also told the justices that more than ever before, AMCON would need the support of the judiciary to resolve the debt obligation before the terminal date. In response, President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Zainab Bokachua, promised to support AMCON in recovering the debt. We'll take a short break here and return with a review of activities on the stock market. Please stay tuned. Uninterrupted bargain activities saw the NSE to a good start today, extending positive momentum which began mid-last week. Crucial market indicators grew by 44 points, representing an increase of 0.16%. And we see that the all-share index is back to the 27,000 benchmark after falling off the mark in October this year. And similarly, the market capitalization of all listed equities added 21 billion naira today to close at 13.048 trillion naira. Market breadth closed positive, with 20 stocks recording gains against 16 losers. And price gains recorded by some blue chip stocks is responsible for the rise of market indices today. Today, Nestle emerged the top gainer again with an increase of 75 naira to close at 1,300 naira per share. Presco comes in second place, having risen from 34.60 kobo to 37 naira and 85 kobo today. The consumer goods sector is on a cruise today as we see Dangote Sugar and Cadbury PLC completing the list of top 4 gainers today. And unfortunately, conversely, we have Okomo Oil falling from its previous high by 5 naira and 35 kobo to emerge on the top losers chart today. First Bank of Nigeria Holdings also shed 55 kobo in the value of its share price. And moving on, we see WAPCO and Access Bank PLC also decreased by a combined 55 kobo to close at 14 naira and 9 naira 80 kobo respectively. On the activity level, over 200 million units of shares were transacted in 4,254 deals, and that summed up to 3.2 billion naira today. And on the global scene, let's see what trading looks like today. FTSE, Dow Jones and Nikkei all bullish today because revitalized trade hopes poured the bullish run on all three stocks. And that's it from here. Fidelia, it's back to you.
In northwestern Kenya, triggered by unusually heavy rain, has risen to 60. This is according to the Kenyan authorities. Downpours began on Friday in West Pokot County, which borders Uganda, and worsened overnight, causing flood and mudslides has swept away 4 bridges and left villages inaccessible by road. According to Governor John Lonyangupuo, no fewer than 22 people are still missing after the tragedy hit Paroa, Yakulien, and Muino. Meanwhile, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed solidarity with the government and people of Kenya and the Democratic Republic of Congo over the deadly flood disasters and devastating mudslides wreaking havoc in some parts of their country. The management of Enugu Rangers Football Club have sacked its head coach Benedict Ugu. This is coming after the club lost 2-0 to newly promoted Aqua Starlets on Sunday at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Stadium. Ugu, who replaced Benga Ogumbote as Rangers coach in the off-season, qualified the team to the group stage of the CAF Confederations Cup. The Port-City club, which currently occupies 15th position on the table, has recorded just 1 win, 1 draw and 3 defeats in their opening 5 games of the campaign. The club announced on their official Twitter handle that a new coaching crew will be named in the next 48 hours. Well, that is our news now. Many thanks for watching. I am Fidelia Aguncha. Bye for now.